Welcome to episode 173 of Stageworthy. I'm your host, Phil Rickaby. Stageworthy is a podcast about people in Canadian theatre featuring conversations with actors, directors, playwrights, and more. Something kind of fun happened this week. Out of nowhere, I suddenly got a notification that Stageworthy had been named one of the best theatre podcasts in the world by feedspot.com. I got a notification late at night that this had happened, that they'd posted this article with this a recognition of Stageworthy, and I was really thrilled to get it because, you know what, I didn't seek that out, and one of the best things is that it helps to let more people know about Stageworthy, which is one of the challenges of having a podcast, is letting people know about it. So that was super exciting. And like I said, one of the hardest things about running a podcast is letting people know about it. And, you know, one of the things that you can do as a listener to help raise the profile and let other people know about the podcast is to go to Apple Podcasts, if that's where you listen to your podcast, and search and find Stageworthy there and leave a comment or rating, because those comments and ratings help new people find the show. But even more than that, if you've been listening for a while and you think there's somebody that you know that might enjoy the show, tell them about it, because some of my favorite podcasts became my favorites because somebody I knew told me about them. Another thing to keep in mind, now is the time of year when the number of guests that I have lined up starts to dwindle, and I start looking for people to interview. There's that lull between the winter and summer months, between the winter rush of shows and the summer Fringe season, as things start to pick up for that. So if there's somebody that you think that I should talk to, tell me about them. I would love to hear about them, and you can let me know about them by dropping me a line by finding Stageworthy on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at StageworthyPod. You can find the website and email me through there at stageworthypodcast.com. And if you want to drop me a line directly, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Phil Rickaby, and my website is philrickaby.com. My guest this week is Evan Tsitsias, the director of Eclipse Theatre Company's production of Kiss of the Spider Woman, which is taking place at Toronto's Don Jail from March 6th to March 10th. What I'm really curious about, okay, first off, so Kiss of the Spider Woman.
Yes.
At the Don Jail.
Yes.
There's like so many things to think about there. Mm-hmm. And one of them is, I'm just curious, like what draws you to Kiss of the Spider Woman?
Mm-hmm. So when we were figuring out what to program the first year, I had a list of shows that I were interested in, and then I had a list of venues because we wanted to have a site responsive theater. So I wanted to animate spaces in Toronto because I've been doing that kind of around the world in different countries and animating historic spaces and mostly using the history of those spaces to create the shows. So this is kind of a new twist on it. So I was thinking, what can we do here? So I saw the Don Jail online and I thought, oh, that's an interesting space. And I'd been there once and I thought, oh, what can I possibly do there? And I thought, oh, musicals, Chicago, this. I was like, what else can we do there? I thought Kiss of the Spider Woman. So that it kind of came together that way. It was on Kiss the Spider-Man was on my list of shows to produce. Of course, I can tell you as a gay man, that show, I responded to that show because it is about kind of masculinity and the definition of what it means to be a man. And I think as a gay man, you're always asking yourself growing up how you define yourself with that word, and how do you fit yourself in that word. Yeah. So that mixed with the fact that it is this big Broadway show, and I saw the original production here. Shit. Yeah. Yep. So it stuck with me. Like when I saw it stuck with me. I don't know if it stuck with me because of the themes back then. I think it was just more the spectacle. Those 90s Drabinsky musicals that were just so wild and so big, and Cheetah was in it, and it was all those things you could possibly want as a new music theater person in the city. You just are like that. It kind of embodied everything you thought about musicals. Yeah. So working on it now, a very different experience because with all the research and I think where we are in the world now, looking at the reality of the prison life back then, I feel was not as highlighted. It was more the escape was the more of the highlight back then, as opposed to the reality of it. So yeah, so I think it was just all that. It was just how could I put a new twist on that show, and then how could it respond in that space?
Yeah,
and that was it. And then the idea was born.
I mean, was it logistically? Was it difficult to arrange to perform in that space?
Yes. It was.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Because it is a heritage site.
Yeah.
And it's also part of the hospital.
Right.
So you have those two hurdles. You have the heritage site hurdle, and then you have the hospital hurdle. It's actually it's actually an in use. It's part of the office space there. So that rotunda that we're performing in, is just a crossway from one building to the other. But there's always doctors and people walking through it, besides the public who can visit it whenever they want.
Right.
But it's basically a throughway from one building to the other.
Huh.
So those two hurdles were large, and it took us about a year and a half to really secure it. And we had to meet in front of this very large, scary group of 12 people, Heritage Ontario, Bridgepoint. They weren't scary, they were actually very nice. They were actually very excited about it. They were just trying to figure out logistically how to make that happen, because it is a working space and a public space.
Well, that I definitely see how that presents some unique challenges.
Oh yeah.
So does that mean that, like, when you're performing, that area is closed to the public, or
when we're performing? So the building closes at 5.
Okay.
So our shows during the weekdays are after 5, and then on the weekends it's closed as well.
Okay.
So we have full use. So we've aligned the schedule so that we are there for when that space is actually closed to the public.
Okay.
So we get control of it a little bit that way.
That's good.
Yes, but there's still, we're still, even as we're going day by day, we're still running into challenges with that space, and even everything from using outlets that we can or cannot use because it is attached to a hospital and taking energy from the There's a million logistical things that happen on a daily basis, as even now, a week before we go in there. And I think when we go in there, it still is going to be a mystery until we're actually in the space.
Even just, I'm thinking of just the sound in a space that's not built for sound. Has got to be a challenge. Does it echo a lot? Is that something? Yeah.
One of the little tidbits I found out about that rotunda itself is that it was initially, the reason that is so live in there is that it was the center of the prison, and they would bring people to that center to do whatever they wanted to do to them, and have it echo through the building.
Oh my God.
So it's one of the reasons why that rotunda is so kind of cavernous and echoey. Right. So that is something that our sound designer, Jeremy, who's amazing, is trying to figure out, is how do we balance that sound in there with the orchestra. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to do as acoustic as possible, if possible. Yeah. And then our backup is that we have handheld mics, and because we're doing this hybrid version of a concert / fully staged version, I actually quite love the idea of, especially Aurora, the star, kind of using this handheld mic whenever she needs it. And so we're hoping that she's the only amplified voice in that world, and the rest of it's all acoustic.
Are there, every theater has its quote unquote ghosts, right? We put ghost light on the stage. Every theater can tell you a story about ghosts. Performing in a jail where, I think, there were hangings there. There were all, it was a jail. So, and especially when you talk about that rotunda, they could do things to people and it would echo all through. Do you feel ghosts in that space at all?
They've renovated it really well. I saw some photos of what it was like before the renovation, which would have been even more perfect for the show. The walls were crumbling. There was a large staircase that came down. It really, you could feel the history in the old space. Yeah. This space is pretty beautiful, but the original, everything else is it's original, but the walls have been plastered over, and it looks quite beautiful in the daytime. But when you go in the nighttime, and the original lights under the balconies are there as well, and it's there, you can definitely feel something in there. And actually, when I was here in December, I went there just for a couple hours, and I sat in, there's no corner because it's a rotunda. Yeah. I sat by myself, for about 2 hours just kind of listening to the space. And it's pretty, the space itself has so much energy and so much kind of, I don't know, the architecture is so beautiful, the energy in there is so wild, and because you can hear absolutely everything, you can hear footsteps from a mile away coming towards you, and as it gets dark in there, you really can start to feel what that would have been like back then. Yeah. And the cells are really, like the cells in the bottom that you can still visit, they're the size of this table. That's really wild. It's a really wild experience in there.
It's kind of wild how long that was used as an actual jail for before it was...
It was, I mean, it's only recent that it's been, I think 2007 they renovated it.
Yeah.
So it's a very recent renovation. But yeah, it's definitely, you could definitely... I mean, they've covered it all up, and there's artwork, and it's quite beautiful. Like I said, it's quite beautiful, and they use it as an office space. So of course, you know, they want it to look, and it's a hospital. So, but yeah, there's still, you can't escape the bones of that place. It's all there.
It looks like a jail. Like from the outside, it looks like a jail. Even if, no matter what they do to it, as a hospital, it's a jail. Yeah,
and I actually love, again, a little history of that they built it in a way so that, because it is a little bit on a hill, that they wanted the inmates when they were driving towards it to see this huge foreboding kind of structure that they knew they were going to be in. And so it has this kind of massive scale to it as well.
It sounds like when they were making it, they were kind of drama queens about the whole thing.
Yes.
Kind of sounds a little bit like they had a whole theatricality thing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Father Time is there in when you enter, there's Father Time engraved in to kind of remind you of things. But yeah, it's and we're trying not, like, we don't want to exploit any of that. We don't want to, we really want to kind of honor what happened there and try to kind of highlight it in a way that doesn't feel gimmicky or we're doing our best to kind of figure out the best way of doing that.
Are you able to rehearse in that space, or is it something that like you can't really rehearse there until you like move in for your tech?
Exactly. We have about a day and a half in the space before we open. I know we've given ourselves probably every challenge we could possibly give ourselves with this piece. But I think it comes along with any theater company outside all these companies that are site specific. Especially if you don't have control over the space. Well, yes. It is it's been a huge challenge, but I've also, like, we're learning to kind of embrace those challenges and use them to our advantage and see what happens.
So I want to talk about just to leave Kiss of the Spider Woman for a minute, or however long it takes, to talk a little bit about your theater origin story. Like, how did you first become interested in theater? How did it become a thing that you were going to make such a center of your life?
It's funny, I was just talking to someone about this, because I think with Kiss the Spider, when Melina uses his imagination to kind of escape the horrors of what he's in, I can, in the spectrum of that, as a child, I did that a lot. I used music theater to escape myself, whatever was happening. If something was happening, I'd go into my room and I'd blast some music theater, and it helped me kind of escape whatever was happening in my life at that moment. So that kind of started it all. And then I think it's just the same as everyone. I started in high school. And then I think I saw Dreamgirls at the O'Keefe Center, the tour of Dreamgirls, when I was like 13 years old or 12 years old, and couldn't believe what I was watching, and then used one of those pieces to audition for Anne of Green Gables in my high school. Little 13-year-old me singing One Night Only at the audition to audition for Matthew Cuthbert, which I got. And then that's it. I went from high school. Then I went to York University for a bit to study acting, and then I went to Sheridan to study music theater, and then I got a job doing the Mousetrap that was here in Toronto for like 20,000 years. So I did it for about 10,000 of those 20,000. I did it for 6 years.
That's a long, solid run.
Yep, from like when I was from 19 years old, probably 20 years old till 20 whatever. Got my equity card while I was there as well, and that's it. And then I was performing a lot, and then I kind of decided in my late 20s, I had like an epiphany on the Disney cruise ship when I was performing about, is this going to be my everyday? Is this what I'm going to do every day? I'm going to dance around and do this. And then I kind of had, I came back to Toronto, and I think I produced my first little show then as a producer, and then I directed it, of course, like everyone does.
Sure,
I know how to direct. I could direct these people, and then realized, oh shit, that's not right. And then they just built, and then I just and then I started studying different forms of theater, and then I think when I did like the Lincoln Center Directors Lab after I had studied Theatre of the Oppressed for a while, and I'd been working in that for a bit, and then I went to New York to do the Directors Lab, and it kind of changed everything there. Yeah. All of a sudden, I was like, oh, this is something that I want to pursue, and then I met all these incredible international directors that we all started collaborating, and I started traveling around the world doing shows and working with in Germany a lot and doing and then it just kind of snowballs. Yeah, so I think it's the same story.
I want to ask you about that. Just right at the beginning, you talked about playing the musicals in your room. Was that your gateway to theater? Was that, you think that was the thing that opened the door? Do you remember what the first Broadway soundtrack that you heard was?
I don't know if it's Dreamgirls was definitely one of my top faves, and then Evita, Patti LuPone and Evita. How can you? I mean, it's like it's like it's a cliche story, but it's like this little gay boy in Toronto listening to Patti LuPone in Evita and playing it to death and performing it in my room and winning my Tony in my room and doing all those things. Yeah, and that was it.
Yeah. How long was it before you actually got to see a show?
Not that long, because I grew up in Toronto, and the O'Keefe Centre was bringing all these these touring musicals in, and I think I said to my mom, hey, I want to go see this show at the O'Keefe Centre, and she's like, sure. And she brought me, a little Greek mom, and she brought me there, not knowing what we were going to see. And then I remember seeing like Fiddler and all those tours that came through Toronto. So it wasn't, I didn't like wait till I was in my 20s. It was pretty early on, like 11, 12, I started to see. And when I was in school, they brought us to a lot of theater in my elementary school as well.
The O'Keefe Centre used to be like the spot to go in Toronto for all those
the
shows.
Tours all came through there. So it was a big influence, for sure. Yeah.
I always heard people complain about the sound in there.
I was so how little kids are.
They mic the whole thing, so who cares? No. So when you started directing, have you left acting behind, or is that something that you're still doing? Or
I certainly haven't done it for a long time, and I actually think it's really brave and amazing. I don't even know how I did it for so many years. Even today, one of the actors just came from an audition. I was thinking, how the heck do they go up there and expose themselves in that way, their souls, to these people who are sitting behind and judging them and telling them if they're right or not for the. And now I'm one of those people. It's a very strange. I don't know, but I do miss it. Yeah, I think because the more I direct and write and produce, I think it all kind of feeds into the other. And I've been teaching a lot in Houston at a theater school there, and I've been teaching there for 5 years. And so through teaching those kids, and it's a professional school, it's kind of like a precursor to Sheridan. It's a professional school, but it's pre-university. So there are high school students that come after school and they do this kind of professional program. And I think, oh, that's interesting. I do miss it. It was it's definitely all I thought I was going to do. Right. I didn't think I was going to do anything else. I never thought about writing or directing or producing when I was younger. I just only thought I'm going to perform.
I think a lot of us think that when we're in theater, especially since most of the theater schools don't talk about doing anything else. Yeah. It's like you will go through this program and then you will spend your life performing or going to auditions or going to auditions and performing. Like that's your life. And then we get out into the world and we find out, if I really want to do something, I'm going to have to do some other things as well.
And do it myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I don't know about you, but they didn't prepare me for that.
I know, which I think they should teach. They should teach you how to be a creator in school, and they should teach you what to do with your money in school. Yeah. And they should teach you what to do when you get a big contract and how to buy a house and do all the things that you need to do as an artist. So you started off as an actor too, right? Yeah. And then I'm curious what your origin story is. What made you?
I actually think mine was a little bit similar. My family, we had some of those Broadway cast albums. We had original cast of My Fair Lady and Godspell and Oklahoma And so, the really classic ones.
And your parents bought those?
My parents had those. And I discovered them in the record collection. And I think at first I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. And then I realized there was a story. If you listen to the whole thing, it told a story. And that sort of drew me towards that, because it wasn't just like if you throw on like this record or that record, each song stands on its own. They all work together to get to a certain place. And that was sort of my start towards that.
And this was in Toronto? Where was this?
We in Belleville.
Oh, okay.
So like not far from Toronto, but in
Yeah.
Belleville. And we didn't get to see a lot of theater, a couple of things, but occasionally I think once I started to be interested in theater, relatives, my aunt would be like, there's a little show at the Young People's Theater. She was very much like, let's go out to that, let's go and see some stuff. But for the most part, it was all up here.
And then what was that leap? I'm always curious, like people who are not from like larger towns, like how did you go, okay, I'm going to actually go out of Belleville and I'm going to...
Well, we lived in Belleville for a while, and then we moved to Ajax, which is, a little closer to Toronto, not quite Toronto.
Yeah.
But I spent I'm not quite sure when the decision was like, this is what I'm going to be, but I knew from a very early age that I was going to be involved in theater. And of course, I went through this period when I was in high school where it was like, people was like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'd be like, oh, I'll be an actor. Because nobody else was doing that. People were like, I'm going to go into business, or I'm going to be a doctor. Like all the things that people say they're going to be. And I was the only person who was like, I'm going to be an actor. You said that to the guidance counselor, and they were like, I don't know how to help you.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I just somehow knew.
Right.
And then I started after sort of making a go of it. After I sort of left doing theater for about 5 years, when I came back, I was like, I think I really enjoy making it. Yes, performing in it, but I really feel very invested in it when I'm part of the creative process, from like making something from beginning to end.
Which I think is actually something that I think I try to instill that in my students, even that I teach now. Like I say to them, I start them from a very young age, and I say, you guys need to learn how to be like artists and creators and not just actors. Because there's a million actors out there, but there aren't a million creators out there, and you're going to have to become a creator eventually if you want to stay in this business. You might as well learn now how to do it. And not just...
It's now such an essential part of like a career in the arts. Like there are so few opportunities for somebody to come along and like give you a job. That you kind of have to take it and get noticed, and then sort of like use that to become something else.
That's why I really do think that the theater schools need to have some ancillary course or something where they teach you all about that and how to save your money.
I think they're starting to get there. They're starting to
do your taxes and all those things.
Well, like, so the school that I went to George Brown Theater School. They always had a business of acting course. Oh, amazing. It was never really as in-depth as it needed to be, but it was at least like there. And now they have like a self-producing portion of the time there. So it's a relatively recent addition where they're at least talking about it.
Yeah. They have to.
It's been so long since people have been doing this, making their own work for at least 20 years. And finally the theater schools are like, I guess we should talk to people about that.
Yes. Oh yeah.
So,
oh, that's cool.
Did you when you started making, you mentioned like you decided to produce your own thing and direct that. What was that?
I did.
Was that something that you wrote, that you created, or
actually, it was funny enough. It was a Candor and Ev show that I did, a kind of a review style show called Don't Tell Mama that I did at Cholula's Cabaret. Okay. And I just grabbed, all my best friends. I think one of them, Mark Allen.
Oh, yeah.
So I grabbed all my best friends at the time and I said, hey, let's put on this show. And we thought we were so cool putting it on. And it was great. It was an awesome show. It did so well. Of course, it sold out because everyone wants musicals. Sure. Sold out immediately. We did it again the year after. We brought it back. We did a mini tour, not tour, but I brought it to some other city. I can't remember, some other theater. I was very ambitious back then. And I was like, I'm going to tour this everywhere. And everyone loved it. And it was during that kind of Fosse craze that everyone loved. And so, I did that for the first time, and ignorance and bliss, and I was like, "Oh, this is easy. Look, we did the show. It's sold out. It's amazing." And then of course, it sold out. It was Toulouse Cabaret. There were like 50 seats, and we did like 5 shows, so of course it sold out.
Oh yeah.
And then I just started producing in my late 20s. I did. Then we did Vampire Lesbians of Sodom after that, and I joined forces with some theater in Newmarket. I can't remember where it was, like a semi-professional theater, and I produced Anything Gables there, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. Maybe I'll produce now. And then I did that, and then of course, you become a producer, and then you realize there's no money in theater as a producer either. So then you're like, I'm going to write now. And then I decided I'm going to write some plays now. And then I decided to do that. And then I have a lot of like ADD in theater. I get very, once I do something for a while, I want to shift gears and go left and then go that way. And then I do that. And like, oh, then I'm going to try writing again. I'm going to try directing again. I'm going to try. So that's I think my blessing and my curse, because I'm always, everything's kind of shooting out of me in all directions.
Sure, but that's not, I don't think that's a bad thing, because you're, diversified, but also like how bored would you be doing the same thing for like 10 years or however long? Like at a certain point, doing the same thing doesn't get you anywhere.
Yeah.
So you sort of have to explore and
branch
find
out
things. Yeah. So this first Candor and Ebb Cabaret was a success. You did it a couple of times.
Yeah.
And it was easy. You said, when did you figure out that this whole thing, that this directing producing thing was not easy?
I did. I was hired actually to produce a show with this fledgling company, but the budget back then, this was like probably maybe 18, 17 years ago. And the budget was pretty hefty at that point. We did a show at the Tarragon. I'm not going to say what show it was, but we produced a show at the Tarragon, and I was hired to come in as a producer.
Yeah.
And, we kind of lost. The show was great, but we had a reviewer in the city at that point who did not love the show itself. And then, at that point it was in the point where reviewers were that be on end all of shows. And so if this one reviewer or 2 reviewers didn't like the show, you were done. So that one reviewer did not love the show. And then the company lost all its money. And I was thinking, oh God, this is, I don't want to be responsible for other people's misfortunes. So I will just stick to my own.
Well, it's hard to, it's hard to get people out, and it was hard to get people out. It's always been hard to get people out. And to be honest, renting Tarragon it's not cheap.
I know, but it's cheaper than found spaces sometimes.
Oh, sure. Yeah. But there's other places where there's a lot more storefront theaters and things like that. We only have Red Sandcastle and the Assembly, I guess, is storefront. So we don't have that many right now. I guess the Commons and like the brick and mortar people, their stuff is a little more accessible, but it's still like it's all an expensive prospect. So it's easy to lose money on a show like that, especially if you've got like, I guess at the time, like you either had the Star. Or
Globe and Mail National Post, one of the 3 top ones. Yeah. So,
but they didn't. The Globe and Mail doesn't often do indie.
No, but don't forget, this was a long time ago.
Sure.
And actually was to tell the truth, back then, the theaters were not that expensive to rent. Okay. And I think that's why there was a bit of an influx at that point of a lot of indie theaters producing at that time. But and it was also a play. Musicals are, as we're learning slowly, unbelievably expensive to produce, no matter how much you scale them back.
Oh, sure. They are, but they also bring people out.
Yes. I know we've been shocked at the reception of Kiss. Like, we sold out 6 weeks before. Before it was crazy.
Well, it hasn't. It's not like it's produced all the time. So there's a whole lot of hunger for it.
Exactly. And I think there's a hunger for music theater in the city as well. I feel like producing a musical in this city is not that it's a safe bet, but there's definitely an audience that is hungry because there's not really a lot of it because it is so expensive. Yeah. So if you do it, I think you're going to get people out because there's just not. How else can you see it?
But you either can see the expensive Mervish shows, or you don't really see it at all. Yeah, because there's so few spaces where people are, because it is expensive to do. So the So there was like one reviewer didn't like the show, and then it sort of
He didn't like the actual piece itself. Not that the show. It was one of those, reviews that were right in the middle. Like he came in hating the piece, and so nothing was going to convince him or her. Yeah. I'm not saying anything.
No, but
what it was. So it was a good learning lesson because I realized that the show was fantastic and the audiences loved it, and it was well received with the audiences. But at that point, it really was, the shift was, this was before blogs and all these other people that everyone can review, and there's so many different, and there's like this was like at the point where there were 2 papers that ruled the world. And if you didn't do well, everyone watched. It's like the New York Times. If it doesn't do well, then at that point, then you were screwed. So I did that, and then I did another, hired again as a producer to do another show, and it did very well. But even when shows do well, you know how it is in theater, even when they do well, there's the revenue very rarely will put you in the black.
It's true.
It doesn't matter if you sell out, you're still going to lose money, even selling out.
Yes.
It's a really strange
It is a strange business.
Yes.
It's a strange business model, especially in the city. And I think I both hate and love to be critical of the whole Mervis organization, just because of they do these shows, but they also have monopolized all the theaters. There's no competition in terms of that size theater.
But they've been great. The good thing is that I think what's great about them is this whole off Mervish and them kind of bringing in indie companies and helping them. I have
loved that. I loved that. But it's also like, they don't have to one up anybody.
Yes.
Because nobody else is on their scale.
Yeah.
And so they can be safe. They never have to really sort of push, because there's always going to be people coming to see their shows. And there's nothing really a step down from that, and it's hard. Yeah.
That's what we're hoping that we are.
Yeah.
Like we're really hoping to kind of fill there. I do think there is this void between like of mid-size musicals in the city, and that's kind of what that's what we're trying to kind of fill. When we decided to build this company, we thought, okay, well, what is it? Is it a really small scale, or it's not a huge scale, it's not a small scale, it's something in the middle where we can still bring excitement, and it's kind of a mid-sized music theater.
How many seats are at the?
It's it's only 100 seats, maybe 105.
Right.
So we're squeezing as much as we can in, and again, because it's a heritage building, we can't. When I first went to go see it, I thought, oh, look at this. There's these 2 beautiful balconies. We could put people up there all the way to the top, but nope, we can't use those. We cannot,
because those are closed off. You can't
they're not closed off, but they're just structurally. It's again, they don't know if they're
right.
We'd have to bring an engineer in to kind of. We don't have that kind of infrastructure.
No.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's exciting because I think that people love musicals, but there's also the whole experience aspect of it, because it's set in a jail. And it's in a jail.
Yes.
So there's very much, I think, you combine the hunger for musicals with the hunger for an experience, which is a great draw.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, I think, because I've been doing that so much of my work outside of Canada. I haven't really done, to tell the truth, a lot of things inside of Canada for the last 6, 7, 10 years, actually. I've been kind of doing everything outside the country and just coming back to visit my family. But we're trying our best to bring a full experience. So the second they walk in the door, we have a kind of pre-show tour that we're going to animate and do things with that will immediately bring you into a different world. So that, and then I'm really trying to utilize the space, and Sarah Jean, our choreographer as well. Like we're really trying to do our best to utilize the space so that we're highlighting the architecture immediately as well. So the audience's eyes can be drawn to everything we want them to see, to really feel that world, using sound the way that it would have been used back then. It's really, I think it's exciting. It's exciting to kind of experiment with that, but still keeping it in the spirit of musical theater. I don't want to take that show, which is kind of this iconic, the escape numbers are so beautiful and so big. I'm not trying to take that away and by scaling it down. I'm trying to, what I think is amazing is using the reality, the real world, and the real architecture of people who are actually in this prison, which the characters are, and saying, how can we use this physical world that we're in? And how did that character Melina actually escape but still in the reality of where he's in.
Yeah.
So how can we use this space, and how can we recalibrate it and animate it in a way that he can fully escape in his mind with these bodies and these sounds, and then we're still in the space. It's really an exciting prospect, actually. We're doing that. We started to do that in rehearsals today. We just started a couple days ago, but we started to kind of access that, and it was really an exciting day.
Was it putting the cast together? Was that did you have an idea of who you wanted in the cast when you started, or was it
no?
What was the process of putting it together?
We did not have any expectations. No, we just put a call out. We were hoping to cast as many Latin American actors as we could, and diverse as much as we can to kind of reflect Toronto. So we've done our best to kind of bring as many as we can, different voices, that way. So, that was part of the casting process. So other than that, it was just a general call, and we brought people in, and, it took us a long time. It took us probably 7 months to fully cast the show.
Wow.
The good thing is that we partnered with Sheridan. So what we've done is that the ensemble of prisoners, all the men, are all Sheridan students.
Okay.
And then we also have these 4 women from Sheridan, these 4 that are graduating this year, that we're integrating into the show in some special way. I'm not gonna tell you how yet, but we're integrating them into the show as well. And then the equity cast are all the leads. So it's a way to kind of bridge those Sheridan kids into the Toronto world as well, and kind of create an opportunity for them to have this professional experience with these amazing actors in Toronto, and expose them in that way as well.
Had you planned for 7 months, or
no? We thought, we're going to do a big general. It was crazy. We had probably over 300 and something submissions for, I think, 4 or 5 roles that we were looking for at that time. And, we just brought everyone we could in, and built from there, and just kind of bit by bit. But, we just wanted to make the right decisions. We wanted to cast it correctly, and we wanted to really find, the right people for it, who, especially because we wanted to kind of put not a new spin on it, but the character of Melina, he's, from the original book to the musical, he hit the spectrum of his sexuality is he started transgendered in the book, and then in the musical he's a bit more watered down to a kind of gay man of that era. And so we're playing with where does he live on that spectrum, and and we're still kind of playing around with that in rehearsals and trying to figure that out and what that meant. So everything was taken into consideration with the casting.
What was the biggest challenge in the casting process?
I think Valentine, actually. Yeah. To tell you the truth. It's a tricky part, because you need this super, the show deals so much with masculinity, and you have the complete polar opposites you have of what they think masculinity is, or what the show's trying to talk about, the definition of this super masculine man, Valentine, from this super masculine world that he's from, this Latin American world, amplified in a prison, this super masculine prison. So it's all this amplification of masculinity. So you're looking for this kind of type, this archetype almost of a man that Melina will see and think, oh my God, he's that guy for me. So it was actually a very different, that was, of all of them, the most difficult. Melina was not. We had a million, that would have been great. And, and Kawa just kind of came in and blew us away. It was, as soon as he walked in and started singing, we all perked up. And I was thinking, someone's going to have a tough time after him.
Well, I guess, that's kind of one of those things that you hope for at an audition, is that somebody's going to come in and make you know that there's nobody else. Yeah. Because it's hard to have a bunch of people who are equally good, and then you have to make almost arbitrary decisions. And so it's good to have somebody that comes in and just it was we all kind of knew almost immediately. Overall, in terms of this show, aside from the issues with the space, what's the biggest challenge of this show, aside from casting and the space?
I don't know if what's the biggest challenge? What a good question. I think it is straddling those two worlds of reality and fantasy. Even today, when we were working on one of the more kind of fantasy numbers, is how far can we go with these? Because it is tough, because it's music theater, and you try to kind of break that paradigm and that kind of constraint in your head of what music theater is. And that's why I love the show, because it actually uses musical theater in the way that I used it as a kid. So I connect to it. So I think it's just trying our best not to exploit the reality of what's going on in that, and really honoring what they were going through in that time period. And that's what I keep on telling the cast, and especially because the prisoners are all being portrayed by the students, reminding them that they were this age and they were being dragged off the streets if they were kind of left-wing anarchists or dissidents, and being tortured, and the reality of the world that they were in, and mixing that with music theater. It's a really strange but amazing combination.
Yeah.
The kind of horrors of what happened with the kind of beauty of musicals.
It almost sounds like the challenge is not how do you differentiate between when we're in reality and when we're in fantasy, but it's more about the concern of taking the fantasy so far that it breaks the reality.
Yes. Yeah.
And how do we do that? How do you do that?
I will tell you that in a week and a half.
That's fair.
There's a lot of smart people in that room. So it's been really amazing. And so I'm a pretty, I kind of love devising and being really collaborative. So I think relying a lot on them as well. I've done a year and a half of research. I've never researched a show more in my life as this. And I think because we were initially going to produce it last year. And then, again, with the space, we just needed more time to secure the space. So another year went by. So it's been a really long time in the making, which is why also we had a bit of time for casting as well, because we knew that we had extra time, so we wanted to take extra care in how we casted as well. So,
you mentioned about the collaborative nature of the way that you're working. I mean, there's everybody's had those directors who are you walk into rehearsal and they already have everything blocked out in their book, and they already think they know all the answers, and so rehearsal just become like a process of going through the map. Are you, when you walk into a rehearsal, aside from the research that you've done, are you a complete open book as far as working with the actors go?
I really am. I wasn't when I first started directing, and then the more I studied directing and trained, then I realized how wrong I was at the beginning. So I'm one of those directors, just as typical. I do as much research as I can. I have a million notes. I have my images that I work with, all that, but then I leave that all in my binder, and then I just watch the actors and I work with them, and even today, we were creating this section, this one escape section, and I just said to them, hey, I'm going to give you this, I'm going to give each of you guys a section to work on, and I want you guys to animate it with sound, and these are your props. I'm going to leave for 10 minutes, I'm going to come back, and you're going to show me what you did, and I'm going to tell you what works, and I'll help you string it together.
Nice.
And again, when I teach my kids as well, I really teach them to be creators, because I don't think that I'm the smartest in the room. I don't think I know the most. I just think that I'm there to cull the best ideas and go, okay, that was smart. Let's use that. Let's do that. That looked amazing. That was clear. That I didn't understand that.
I kind of feel like that attitude is a more of a modern director. Because I think the history of the director has been the director's the smartest person in the room. He controls everything. He has all the answers. And I've encountered in the last few years more directors who, when you say, I don't understand what's happening here, and like, what am I doing? And they go, I don't know. What do you think? And instead of like having the answer, it becomes a discussion about what's happening and what could be happening, rather than somebody imposing something on you, which is
100%. And again, this all these happened to me when I was at the director's lab like 10 years ago, and then I've been and then I created a director's lab here in Canada as well. We're on our 10th year this year as well with Esther Jun, and so that working with directors from all around the world and understanding that and working in Germany a lot where the actors are, they're all PhD, they're all 3 PhDs in Germany, so they all have PhDs. And so you can't fool them. And when I started working with them, and working with directors there and collaborating, co-directing a lot, which I do a lot of, I realized, there's no fear. I don't have fear in saying, I don't know, but I'll find out. Yeah. And actually Bartlett Sher did an amazing, he said that 10 years ago in one of the sessions at the Lincoln Center, and I'll never forget it. He said, you have to be unafraid to say, I don't know in rehearsal, and then say, I don't know, but I will find out. I'll figure that out, or we'll figure that out. And so I really kind of work with that. Yeah. I'm not afraid to say, I don't know.
Having worked more out of Canada than in Canada, is there something in particular that you notice about the theater scene when you come back to Canada?
Yes. I think it's the same as any space. It becomes like there's definitely a distinct Canadian theater culture, but I think it's changing now quite a bit with those storefront theaters and all those theaters that are kind of breaking rules in some way. Yeah. But there's definitely a way in which performers work as well that I find, yes, the way that performers work sometimes I find very different. And also I spent 5 years in the States now, and I think performers in the States are like really hungry and really they're very ambitious in a way that I think, how you were talking about the Mervishes. Yeah. I think sometimes that trickles down to performers here, especially ones that are established, where they can, there's this sometimes, I'm not saying a lot of them. No, but there are some performers who, I think, I don't know, but I think they feel like, I know where my next job is. I know I'm going to get another job. So I don't really have to do what you're saying or try to do something new. And but I don't think that's a lot. I just think there are some. I think there's some anywhere, not just in Canada. But there's definitely a distinct Canadian feel to certain shows. And I can't put my finger on it because I've been trying to figure that out as well. But I think it's the same when in Houston, when I go see shows in Houston where I've been living for 5 years, there's the same sensibility to all those shows. And I can't put my finger on that either. I've been trying to figure out, I lived in New York for a year and I went to see every single show I possibly could. Yeah. And I was trying to decode what it is about New York performers that, I love kind of decoding what they're doing on stage that makes it amazing. Yeah. And so, I just think it just comes with the culture. Like if that's all that, the good thing is we have Luminato and all these amazing companies that come in here. Yes. So you can see that. And I think that's influenced us a lot. And let me just say, I'm not saying there's anything bad about the Canadian distinction. No. I'm just saying I can't figure out what it is about inside Canada when I watch the shows, what it is. Like, what is that essence that's making it feel to me? And it could just be because I'm coming back to it and I'm going, I feel a familiarity with it or a comfortableness with it. That might be a great thing. So, I don't know. I don't know what it is.
It's so hard to figure out because I know that every place, everywhere has its own flavor, right? I do wish that I could get out and see more theater in different places around Canada. Because each scene is different and we don't have a lot of crossover, especially in the indie scene. I know people who are professional actors and they're going from big show to big show to big show across Canada, but the indie scenes are a little bit more amorphous and we don't cross over it.
And I find it actually very exciting in Toronto. The indie scene, I think, is much more exciting than any of the other scenes. Like I love when I go see shows in the indie theaters and the tiny little theaters, I'm always like thinking, wow, this feels so fresh and exciting. And
I think it's because there's sort of like when you're making it yourself, there's a certain investment in it that propels you towards working harder. Like I have a lot on the line because I'm making this rather than somebody hired me to do this show. So I think there's a little bit more there. Not that people don't.
I get you. The investment. Yeah. I get you.
There's certainly a lot of investment when like you're making it on your own. And I think that's super exciting.
Yeah, and different things at stake.
Yes, 100%. 100%. When you come back, because you come back, this is your first time coming back in a while to work. When you come back, are you seeing a lot, or are you just here for family?
No, I do see a lot. Like I see as much as I can. I'm just most comfortable in theater than anywhere else. So I see a lot of theater. I'm going to see Rose on Saturday, so I'm pretty excited about that. Nice. I see a lot of shows. I don't just, I very rarely just sit sit around and talk with family. And, I go see stuff all the time.
That's good. That's awesome.
Yeah.
In terms of Kiss of the Spider Woman and so you're opening soon. You're getting into this space soon. You're like the whole thing is happening. What are you most looking forward to about having this show open?
Besides relief of the last 2 years, I'm excited to have the cast go in there for the first time. Because a lot of them have never seen it. Oh, sure. I'm going to give them a video tour of it this week, that I found this amazing, pre-renovation tour of it so they can kind of start to understand. But I feel like until you're in there, it really is it's an amazing magical space. Yeah. And especially at night. So it's just, I'm excited to just kind of build that world in there and just see how the audience is. Yeah. Just have this like really intimate encounter with that audience. They're right there. They're literally sitting right there. There's nowhere else they can go. It's hugely tall, but it's not wide or the rotunda is, I don't even know how many feet up it is. It's insanely tall, has 2 balconies and then this huge skylight. But the actual circumference of it is tight. So they're going to feel like they're there. And then we've also, we're placing people all around them. It's going to be as immersive as possible that way.
Yeah. Nice. I can only imagine how your cast is going to react going in there, because they're probably going to go in for the first time at night.
Yeah, most likely. Yep.
So that's kind of awesome. I hope that you're like, I hope you have like, I don't know, a video camera ready and you Instagram that stuff, because that could be great.
Yeah, I think they're going to love it. Yeah.
Awesome. Evan, thank you so much. It's been great.
Thank you.
This has been a Homebody Productions production.